Welcome back to The Big Build. I'm Robin Clever, and when I'm most happy is when I have loads of timber to play with, especially where I've designed something, in this case a whole load of floor joists to suit all the different areas of the structural floor upstairs, the new loft floor. I've got a drawing which has been compiled by the manufacturer from all of the detailed surveys that I carried out. And so with my drawing, I've got a schedule of joists. I've got a whole load of hangers that we're going to be needing. I've got loads of loose rim boards here. And basically, I'm going to get up there now and start putting them in, setting things out and straightening some of these awful dimensions up on this roof. It's a really exciting time. So today I'm not going to do a great deal of fixing. I'm going to get one section in, just get those laid out, and I'll show you that once I've put that in. In the meantime, I can't wait. So using a metal web joist, a Posi joist in this case, they are fantastic because unlike a stock timber, say a 9x2 or a 9x3, so a 225x50 or 225x75, they are heavy, they're not necessarily straight, they shrink, the moisture levels are quite high, then they shrink after they've been fixed and you get cracking and all kinds of other things with plaster work and flooring that may squeak. Whereas these engineered joists, they allow for surfaces to pass through, they're lightweight, they are generally really straight, and they're super strong. I just think that they are one of the best things that have come to the building trade in the last 30 years. I started using them nearly 20 years ago. I can remember my first job and I've never looked back. I will use them wherever I can. So the very first section I'm going to put on is this end here. I'm just going to bring around the ones I need. I'm going to get those on, get them spaced and fixed, and then from there we're going to work all the way through over to the stairwell trimming, which is just about here, over to the stairwell trimming, and then we'll complete that front section. I anticipate this is going to take us a couple of days to get done. No rush, just take our time and get it all absolutely spot on. So the very first part for me is setting up the initial bit of joist work. So I'm setting up these first joists over the extension. So obviously we built these extensions, and if you look at the earlier videos, you'll see how we set the extensions out and how square they were when we were in the ground. So I now know as we come up, everything's nice and true. Now, this whole extension, everything was squared off the dominating part of the building over on the other side. And then we just ended up with this really old wonky wall which we could deal with on one side. So the idea was that the joists are put in and I square them up. So it's a little bit like a joinery. Now what we've got here is we've got our joist ends and we've got a rim board. Because our roof pitches down on here now and the soffit comes in above this brickwork, that's as far as the brickwork comes to. And on the end we've got a gable end which is also timber framed and clad with black painted cladding. So what I did to square this up was everything's parallel, everything's true. The joists come in to the exact length I want them. They're made on those machines that are super accurate, so you can pretty much guarantee they are going to be the length that you wanted. So once I put my first one in there and I pulled this one in at 400 centers, I was able to have a parallel box. And then I take a diagonal from the corner to the corner, both of them, and check them, and we're bang on. We're within a millimetre or so, which is absolutely perfect. Even if it was 10 millimetres over that, it's a very small percentage out square, but it's not, it's nice and true. Now the next one, the main long joist, or the first long joist, they're 7 metres long. They spring off this load bearing wall here and they come out to the wonky wall on the other side. This is where that rim board ends. So I've already worked out the position. I've cut that rim board so it hits the side of the first joist. We'll pull a line through, get that joist in, fix one end, but then what we're going to do is we're going to do an even bigger diagonal measurement back to that lovely long flank over there and get that nice and true. So you might be thinking, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is this, that we're going to be using large format plasterboards on our ceiling. And when we want to put those up, we want to put one up, a full board, straight into the corner and know that everything's square, no scribing. And when we put our flooring down on top, we want to know when we put a line through, everything is square and true. It just makes a much nicer job. When you're building stud work, you can set out from anything or anywhere. And in some commercial settings, we use what we call grid line. It's set out by a surveyor. When you sort of get a big floor plan, they put a grid line in. Now, every trade has to work to that grid line. So I do something very similar here. And in my case, my grid line would be that whole side above that steel there, which was taken at 90 degrees from that existing building over there, which is really nice and parallel. So that's where I'm at. And it's super easy to work everything out from that. So the next job is to fill this section in. Once these joists are in and secured, I'm using a really good Spax screw. It's a Wirrock screw, it's corrosion proof, and it's got a wafer head, but a very flat flanged wafer head. So with these joists, you can spike them, or you're spiking through a part of the timber which can sometimes split. Okay, so these are absolutely brilliant. Because they've got this little wafer head on them, they don't pull in and split, they hold. And they're 87 millimeters. It's a really funny length, but these are 45, these top chords, and the plate underneath is around 45. So when you drive these in and you let the head go in a little bit, you're not penetrating through the bottom of the wall plate into the mortar. If you used a longer fixing and you did that, sometimes the fixing pushes the wall plate up, and you really don't want that. So these are a fabulous screw. Now, we do use a lot of nails when we're putting these in, but I prefer to use these. So I've got 3 on the end of every rim board and the joint, and then I've got 1 either side on the bottom chord of the joist. Now, the rim boards I've set out nice and true as well, so that will hold the joists in the plumb position, because sometimes the bit of the top chord or the bottom chord has a little bit of twist in it as it's just timber, and that can actually set the joist like this. So you can just pull it backwards, pull it forwards, and get it nice and straight. So that's enough of that. Let's get these in, fixed, and then we can move through the largest section. So you can see that the Posi joists, the metal web joists, are super brilliant to fit. They're really quick. There's no, I say it's just completely different to using solid timber, and they go together beautifully. I mean, they're really well engineered and everything is absolutely fantastic. I mean, Andy made a great job of getting all these plates exactly where we wanted them as well. We spent a lot of care setting it all out. So, you know, I think that's the key. And also where you see where we've got all the walls nice and straight as well. So, you know, Andy again took a lot of care over that, building all that up and enabling us to get this roof super flat, super straight. So that's it for another day. I'm going to be back after the weekend. We've got a weekend coming up. The wind's easing off, the rain's easing off, and I really fancy a pint. And I'll catch you all again soon.